Almost ready.
Okay.
The streams are pretty much up. I just have to make a few minor changes so that there we go. Save that so that I can watch the. All right, we'll start and then we can go.
Todd and Rob in the afternoon.
Hey, afternoon delight.
With Todd and Rob. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and here we are, Rob, for another edition of the new media show. A day late, but not a dollar short.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of folks won't know that we're doing this show today. So I did send a tweet out saying we're doing it today, but
Yeah, I had
people build their schedules around shows, so it's possible we may not have as many live listeners today.
And I have I had a prior commitment yesterday, so I wasn't able to do it, but wanted to get the show out, and I just wanted to let you know it's the MacGyver in me. I jury-rigged our new streaming setup so that we could be live on all the apps, so that we're back where we were on all the live streams that we were. But what I had to keep is I had to keep the Cloud Wowza service in order to do the HLS stream so that we could be on the Podcasting 2.0 apps. And what's kind of funny is we're live everywhere else. We're up running right now. Everything's up and running. But Wowza is doing that thing it used to do with us where it would take a couple of minutes to spool up. So the Podcasting 2.0 app for live video is not live yet because this stupid thing is delayed in getting spooled up and started. So at some point here, I'll be able to send the bat signal for the video feed that we're live and lit on video. We're live and lit on audio.
Oh.
And most people are like, what are you talking about? See, there it went. Did it start? Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're live on YouTube Music, right?
Yes. Well, we are not. We're not live on YouTube Music because there's a difference now. Because with the way this new system works, it instantly brings me up on YouTube. I don't have to set an event anymore, but I can't set a playlist. So that's the offset. We're live on YouTube, but we're not live on YouTube Music. Now, if I schedule an event on YouTube Live and did the old way of starting the show up, we could be live over there too. So it is possible, but be honest with you, it's click.
I don't think we're going to get much additional listeners over there, or viewers.
But it's literally 2 clicks for me and everything is up and live. I don't have to do like start Twitch. I don't have to start Twitter, and I don't have to worry about a whole bunch of other settings. So it lets us get out of the gate a lot faster. Now, that being said, it's no different. We're streaming all over the place. And matter of fact, now we are in 1080p. So we're actually pushing at 1080 versus 720. So we should be a little bit clearer on those that are watching us and using more of their bandwidth. So
I made some adjustments this week to my camcorder, also to up the I'm set at 4K now.
Right.
So
why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Because that's the only other setting that it has. It's either, I was trying to get it clearer. So just, I don't know if my system can handle that, but it probably doesn't. I'm sure that my video capture card downgrades it probably.
It dumbs it down to where it needs to be,
Right.
But
it might be clearer going in. It's that whole thing, quality in, quality out.
Well, it depends on how good the sensor is. Sometimes smaller is better, so.
Do I look clearer today?
I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't know if I need to look at upgrading my video capture card.
To me, your white balance seems to be off always a little bit, but and my white balance was off today too. And one of the reasons was I'm grabbing it here. One of the reasons was during all this rigmarole of trying to change some things up, I had to reload the TriCaster from base, and so this is you got to have one of these, Rob. You put this by your face.
I mean, I would imagine just a piece of paper would
work
suffice.
too. That'll work too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know what that looks like. I could hold up a piece of paper and see what it looks like.
Well, you have to basically then go into your software and white balance. So most cameras have an auto white balance. I think they do okay.
Yeah, I think this Sony camera that I have has auto white balance.
But it also depends on the temperature of your lights. So my lights are all 5600K. So everything in here is set. I'm light balanced. And then if I have my white balance done, everything should, quote unquote, should look natural. But when I was getting ready to start today, I was pretty contrasted out. So that's...
And I changed the background colors too.
I see that
too. So
yeah.
I'm not making, because what I was noticing as I was moving, if the colors were moving, was that my exposure on the camera was changing.
As the colors changed.
Right.
Yeah.
So this keeps a consistent exposure.
I would say, just make sure you get your focal point on your face, white balance on your face. Now, today I'm wearing black. Black isn't always the best color, but it also depends on what color shirt you wear will help. Your camera's going to do certain things too. But anyway, we look good enough for the internet. But
I've been really thinking a lot about creating videos more and trying to get a little more advanced around that. I've got a lot of tools here that I'm just haven't been using.
Right.
And I started a new show called Trust Factor over on 100 TV. And
what is that? 100
it's just
TV.
a group of, currently it's a group of shows that was pulled together by Ross Brand.
Oh, okay.
Who's into doing a lot of live stuff. And I've done a lot of stuff with Ross over the years. I've co-hosted his show with him before.
He's a big StreamYard guy.
Yeah, correct. And does a lot of kind of live shows and stuff like that. And he's been doing a lot of stuff. He's been doing publishing and putting out books and things like that too. So he's been doing a lot of stuff. So this is a new network project that he's taken on called 100 TV. And I raised my hand and said I would love to join and create a new show.
So what's the show about?
About building trust as being a content creator. It's called Trust Factor. So all of the aspects of building a relationship and building trust with audiences.
Right.
And just in your in your professional career, I think the number one challenge that our world has right now is I don't think anybody trusts anything anymore. And they don't trust other people, and people aren't thinking about how to build trust as much as maybe earlier generations were probably a little bit more focused on things like that, of being real with people and being honest. And it's not necessarily focused on truth or any concepts like that, because that is truth is in the eye of the beholder to some degree. And also it's fact-based, but this is more about building trust, and trust is at a higher level than truth. So so that's what the show's about. And actually I just recorded my second episode just before the show here.
Awesome. Well,
so hopefully it's better.
Someone just popped into my chat on Facebook. There's a blast from the a blast from the past.
From the past.
Hey, Earl, how you doing? How's Hanford? Are you still in Hanford?
Oh, is that in Hanford, Washington State?
Yeah, Hanford, California.
Oh, Hanford, California. Okay.
And years ago, I was stationed when I was in the Navy at Lemoore, NAS Lemoore. And Earl and I'm 99.9%. That's the same Earl. Earl and I were stationed together before, and I think he's in Riverside now. So okay, so you got out of the valley. That's good. But anyway, so it's fun. Hey, I hope you're doing well, my friend. Hope you and the wife and the kids are doing good. I tell you, Rob, the this week has been one of those where it's been like catch up week, and doing NAB follow up too. And, I had a very big list of people to follow up with NAB. And, we've all gotten those NAB messages that were, hey, thanks for stopping by and seeing us. And let's follow up. And there's really no personality to them. So what I had done is we had an app scanning thing, and I really didn't pre-plan it, but I wrote notes on each customer. As they left the booth, I had written up some, crib notes, looking for hosting, looking for, whatever they were looking for. And then I took basically, I was able to create individual emails, personal ChatGPT created emails for every individual badge that I scanned based upon what they were, what we discussed. So if they were if they were at a university and they were looking for podcast hosting, I was able to take their contact information along with a pre-built template that I made and just change the name and the purpose of the visit, and then 2 or 3 other little criterias. ChatGPT pumped me out a personal email. Hi, Tom. I was glad meeting you at NAB 2023. We're glad you're doing well over at such and such university. We discussed you looking for such and such service, blah, blah, blah. And here are some links. Here's my calendar link, da, 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 da. And the next thing I know, I have a nice, as it appears, personal email. Now it is, because every one of them I had to do a little few tweaks. Yeah. But I was able to pump those out about at the rate of 1 every couple of minutes. And a couple hours work, I got through all my scanned contact lists. And for the first time, after coming off an event like that, I feel like I've done the contacts that I had personally interacted with justice in the follow-up email. Now, we'll see if that leads to meetings and sales, but it just wasn't.
Sounds like that you tapped into what you learned from them and you shared that back to them as though you were listening.
well, I was, because I had written notes, right?
Yeah.
But but at the same time, I may not have remembered what university or which company they were from, but because it was in their contact, ChatGPT was able to pull that out and say, da 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 da, and then I said, in my precursor, I basically said, okay, provided a link to this page at Blubrry, and or maybe it's so I was able to really kind of customize the responses. And it didn't get better, though, over time, because I was doing it all in the same thread. So it kept running home to mama and making the same mistakes. So it kept making a couple of mistakes in one of the paragraphs. And I kept telling it, this is what I want you to use. But it wasn't smart. So it wasn't perfect by any means, but it definitely saved me some time. And it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, let's try this, see if we get any more personal responses. But I don't know if you're using AI anymore, and I find, again, and I don't want to get into this too hardcore, because we've talked about it a lot. I'm using it for a lot of drudge work. Yeah,
I do use it on occasion. I'm not using it for lots of things, but I think over time I should start using it more for doing more things. So it's just I'm not finding everything I'm doing needing to be used that way. So
yeah, me too.
And so that's the thing about it. I think
it's a hit and miss type thing at this point.
But it still is. I mean, it depends. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of depends.
That's true.
that are linked up with using that technology right now. It really depends on what you're trying to do.
So I am going to give a little secret of what I'm going to try to do, and so that other people can try this too. So on my tech show, I write a title and a synopsis of one of the many articles that I write, and a little bit of personal information. And that goes into my show notes at Geek News Central. But on YouTube, and just like this show, for years, we have not really done a good job with the metadata.
Right.
So one of the problems I had at Geek News Central was my producer, Kirk, he does all the prep and finds all the articles that I'm going to talk about during the show. And while I'm doing the show, he's actually in the blog link. He's basically writes a title and then links that, hyperlink that's back to the article I referenced. And all of those links, because there's so many of them, sometimes there's 20, 22, 23 links, all of those have a no follow link so that Google doesn't hit me for basically having a link farm. So the challenge I've always had was, how do I transform that from that, those show notes, how do I get those over into Google? Because he's already done the work for me. But you can't copy HTML into YouTube's description. You have to provide a text dash and a hyperlink. You have physical hyperlink. You can't use HTML. So I took that, just cut and paste right out of the raw HTML, right on my blog post, and I put it in ChatGPT, and I said, convert this back to titles and hyperlinks. And it converted it back to text and hyperlinks with a dash in between. And I was able then to cut and paste that into YouTube with those reference links in YouTube. Now, I've started, and I'm working on it for this show too. I'm building a template. But I got to thinking, okay, I normally call the YouTube episode and the podcast episode the same title.
Right.
Well, that's a missed opportunity. So what I'm going to do now for the tech show is I always have 4 top articles. I'm going to pick a second article and make a second title and a second description for that episode that's not the same as the one on geeknewscentral.com. So basically, I'm getting a twofer. I'm getting the ability to be found on Google for one topic, and I'm being able to be found on YouTube for a second topic for the same show.
Right.
So I thought, we'll see how that works.
Because there's multiple topics that are covered in your show.
That's
so
right.
You can highlight different ones for different,
so
distribution.
What I'm going to start doing with this show, and some of it's going to be done in post, because when I hit publish, that's when the transcript is created. But I've been testing a system where they will actually pull in, it's an AI system, they'll pull in this show, and I'm able to do social clipping and some other stuff, but it also produces a transcript. Now, my problem is that AI currently is not very smart in knowing when we change topics. So on my tech show, when I'm doing article, I know where the switch is. Kirk, my executive producer, knows the switch is, and he can put time hacks in all of those articles that and document that in the post. The AI thinks it tries to come up with a list and give you a time hacks, but it's always wrong. It never gets it right. So what would ultimately be great is if there was a way, either on the Roadcaster or someplace where we could teach the AI where marks were. Okay, this is the change of a topic. Mark, because I could sit here with my finger on a button and I could hit a change over so that we could teach the AI where there was a new topic being started. We're not going to be there yet, but this is the kind of stuff that if it was available, and if, let's say, I could do it on the Roadcaster, could set a mark on where topics change, and that would be something that the AI or the transcription software could pull out. There would be the ability then to have much better metadata when the AI looks at the transcript and the content. So for me...
or Todd, could you just be more deliberate?
I've tried.
When we change topics, just to say what that topic is and then start talking about it.
But if you're doing a news show and you're covering 22, it gets pretty monotonous to say, okay, I'm moving to the next topic, or I'm moving on. But maybe we could have trigger words. Maybe we could have a list of 10 trigger words that, if said in a certain sequence, could train something to basically look at this next segment of content. So it'll get better over time. But ultimately, what I want to do is now I'm going to start taking the transcript from this show, and then I'm going to have the service that I'm using, which I'll announce a little bit in a few more weeks. The one I've been playing with as this gets more refined. I'm going to see if we can get a better set of show notes for newmediashow.com and a separate set of show notes for YouTube to see if we can up the game just from the metadata that this thing is able to pull out. Won't be able to do the time hacks. And usually in this show, we only cover 2 or 3 topics anyway, so it's not that crazy for this show. It's more about the context of what we're talking about and having it be able to come up with a synopsis of the episode. Now, I did that on one episode. I did that on, let's see if I go back to New Media Show, and it's real obvious to see which one it is. Episode number 537. If you look at that write-up, now let me read this to you. And does this sound like I wrote this, or does this sound like the AI wrote this? On episode 537, which was done on April 12th, I said Todd Cochrane, founder of Blubrry Podcasting, and Rob Greenlee, founder of Spoken Life Media. On this week's episode of the New Media Show, we discussed the acquisition of the Podcast Business Journal by Pod News. We also explored the potential impact of YouTube podcasts and how podcasts are not fully embracing it. Finally, we delved into the pod roll feature proposed by Podcasting 2.0, a modern take on the blog roll concept that will enable podcast hosts to share their favorite podcast recommendations in supported apps, a fantastic way to foster community discovery. Does that sound like me?
No.
Does it make sense? A little. Yeah. Does that sound readable?
Yeah, it does.
In this instance, I didn't have it do the transcripts, but I fed it the 3 or 4 main topics that we talked about, and it created a summary from those 3 or 4 topics. And I had to edit this a little bit. So I probably, if I had wrote that, as much time as I spent feeding it the parameters, I probably could have written that, but I don't think it would have come out as good, personally. And another thing that I did is, if you look at episode 538, the write-up's a little different. It says AI Revolution, Twitter live updates, and YouTube music features, NAB Show 2023 Insights. That title and the write-up was purely written using our transcript.
Oh.
So this is what it came up with on its own, and I didn't change it at all. Todd Cochrane and Rob Greenlee dive into the 2023 NAB Show. Discussing the latest innovation and trends in the broadcasting space, we explore the recent changes to Twitter Live while examining YouTube Music's new feature that shows you're live when you're on YouTube. So a little bit, okay. Furthermore, we delve into the potential impact of artificial intelligence on content creation. The AI came up with that by itself from our transcript. But what I had fed it was about 10 examples of previous episodes that I had handwritten. So I have a template of previous episode formats. So basically, I gave it 10 of our previous episode, and our show notes are pretty thin on New Media Show.
Right.
And I put those in there. I said, learn how I write, learn how Todd writes. Here is
be descriptive of that in the text, that learn from these and then output based on this. Is that what you have to actually tell?
Yeah, I said, learn from these 10, and they were all in a block, big block of text. Then learn from those and analyze the transcript of the episode and write a title and a short paragraph, because you can tell it how much to write. Write a short paragraph summary of the show.
Todd, do you think it took longer to format that post into ChatGPT than it was to actually write it?
Okay, now, but here's the thing. I've done that work once. I have those 10 samples, right?
Yep.
So I can take those 10 samples, and if I decide
Copy
to
and paste them
I
into
can
a
copy
new-
paste them into a new that
New
same
query,
format,
right.
and I just copy in the transcript. But the problem is I don't get the transcript for the show until after we publish it.
Right.
So for those that are doing work and getting a transcript before and it's making me rethink some things from our service standpoint. If you have the ability to get that transcript before you publish,
Well, you could because
could.
you're getting the MP3
I
file
could.
before.
right, that's true. But the way we've set up it at Blubrry is I publish and then the transcript comes 6 minutes later because we weren't using a transcript with AI. So there are some. So anyway, I'm playing with this. I'm being very careful because I don't want Google to screw me.
So why didn't you set your import of the transcript to be before you publish?
Because that's not how we did it when we set it up at Blubrry. When you hit publish,
No, I get that, but
Yeah.
was there a reason why you did it that way versus
beca-
uploading the episode and then doing the transcript and have that be a part of your publish process?
well, it is part of the publishing process where you don't have to think about it. We
No,
made
but
it
after you published it, not
Yes.
before.
because what happens is on Blubrry when I hit publish,
Mhm.
the episode goes up immediately. Then we write in a file that is an SRT file or whatever that extension is. We say transcript coming soon, and we ship off the media file to Rev. And about 6 minutes later, the media file comes back and overwrites in the same file name because we have to have the transcript in. We have to have that it basically you got to ship the RSS feed with that transcript tag populated.
Right. Couldn't you do that even though
You could if you pre-produce but the problem is way we set it up, we didn't set it up so people could ship stuff to Rev before they publish.
before they actually publish?
Right, in our publishing system. But if you're just using Rev or Whisper or another service, you could and I'm sure a lot of people are doing this. And that's one of the issues I have with some of the AI tools is they pull from your RSS feed. So they wait until you publish.
Yeah. Well,
Eh.
some like a CapShow or whatever allow you to upload your MP3
Right.
directly to them,
Right.
get your transcript, get your
Get all
your-
that
your
stuff
sections
ready.
and stuff,
Yeah.
and then you use it in your publishing
Right.
process. Right.
So some of the flow is not perfect for some of the services. But be honest with you, what I've determined here is, and then here's what I'm really doing, because I'm doing one episode of Geek News Central handwritten,
Mhm.
one episode of Geek News Central ChatGPT written with me editing,
And
and
see which works better. Right.
and then
That's what you're saying.
I'm going back in incognito windows, I'm doing Google searches, and I'm seeing where are these ranking. And what I'm finding so far is that and this might and again, this is low sample, I'm only on this a couple weeks, is that it appears to me the ones that I handwrite make it into Google search faster than those that are been created by ChatGPT. It's to me,
Make it into search faster.
it
or
feels to
are
me
more relevant?
it feels to me that there's a 24-hour penalty when Google thinks you're writing because basically I can post an episode and
How
within
do you
about,
tell?
because I know how long normally it takes for an episode to show up in search results. So
No, but how could Google tell if copy was written by ChatGPT versus you? writing it? Does it learn?
Universities are now
Right.
starting to catch when people are writing pages with ChatGPT. So I don't know. This
Is it a new form of plagiarism? Is that what we're really talking about here? Is that kind of what it is?
I've been taking full sentences of ChatGPT output, and I've been putting it in independent Google searches to see if that sentence comes up anywhere else.
Right.
I can't do, sure, maybe there'll be a short 8-9, but I take a sentence and I copy it and I see if I can find where ChatGPT learned to write like it. I'm trying to find out if this is going to be a copyright issue, as well as is Google punishing me for putting up an episode with an episode title and a show notes. And at this point, and again, this is nothing, this is just Todd thinking, because I say, that should be showing up in search results already. It appears to me that it lags 12 to 18 hours.
Well, Google might have a business reason for doing this.
They
considering
might.
They're a competitor of ChatGPT, right?
But
With
the question
their
is,
own AI platform.
I never put anything pure. This is the thing too. I never cut and paste.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it and I'll put it in WordPress, and then I will edit, change words, and I run it through Grammarly and make sure everything's right.
Oh, and Grammarly is going to rip it apart.
Grammarly changes things up.
I know. Yeah. I've seen it happen a lot, actually. With them.
In that instance, then,
it's
how can Google
unique.
How can Google tell?
I would have a hard time thinking that they could, especially if you ran it through Grammarly.
Right.
It's going to change word combinations.
It does.
It's going to shorten.
It rearranges stuff, and so
Grammarly will actually shorten things.
Right.
They'll eliminate entire words that will be generated by ChatGPT.
So I've got lots of things cooking here, but so starting tonight will be the first night that I'm going to put two different descriptions in, one on GNC, one on YouTube, that are different.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I'll do is I'll wait 24 hours. I'm now open up incognito windows, and I will start searching for the key phrase that I want to be found for that episode, and see if we can find separate in YouTube and separate in GNC. If this works.
Right.
I keep hearing people talk about repurpose the content. So I've got 666 episodes of GNC. And what happens if we have the ability to go in on episode 1600 when you've talked about something in there that is relevant today? What happens when I change the title and the emphasis first paragraph? What does Google do with that? Do I get a refresh and a new round of traffic? Google always likes pages to be updated and to stay fresh. That's part of the logo. Stuff that's 10 years old, that doesn't get too much traffic anymore because it's old, regardless of the content. Google rewards fresh, updated content on pages. Blogs don't normally do that. Corporations do, and their product pages, services, manuals, they're always in a constant flux. But content creators don't usually go back and restack and remess with postings from the past. So once this gets really automated and someone knows, and let's just think about this a little further, someone knows all the content on my.com, and I could wake up in the morning and say, hey, you've got 6 articles on the website that is referencing something that is in the news today. But it's not a main emphasis of the content. Can we rewrite that and make it the main emphasis for today? Well, does that take old content that would have gotten no more traffic at all and get traffic? I don't know.
It's an interesting question, Todd, that these tools could give you a very dynamic content creation workflow. Right?
Absolutely.
That will adapt to
the world,
the interest market that exists around content, right? So you can I can envision this, and I've been thinking a lot about this, actually, about how a workflow could be created. And that's why I asked you about your workflow with the transcripts, right? Was how we can use this technology to simplify the publishing process and make it, just like you said, make potentially dynamic, right? The whole thing could become dynamic.
Well,
right?
I think there's caution in that.
Well, there is, and it could be, it could give certain people that have access to this technology a definite advantage in the market.
So right now, I would say that just taking the one content, let's say I'm going to Well, I just go over to my website now, and you can tell, but my descriptions for my shows have grown. Anyone looking at that. So here was the title of my post from Monday. Elon Musk reflects on Starship debut, anticipates next flight in months. That's the headline. And the post is, and what I did is, well, in a recent talk, SpaceX founder Elon Musk discussed the debut launch of Starship rocket, stating that the vehicle's flight slightly exceeded expectations and the damage to the launch site was minimal. He anticipates the Starship flying again in just 2 or 3 months. During the flight, 3 of the 33 engines were not deemed healthy enough for full thrust, but 30 engines were in good condition for liftoff. Despite some engine and heat shield issues, Musk remain optimistic about the future launches. With upgrades to the rocket and launch pad, he expects the next Starship launch attempt in 6 to 8 weeks, but acknowledges that the regulatory hurdles may take longer to clear. Musk hopes to achieve up to 5 flights this year and estimates SpaceX will spend $2 billion on the Starship program in 2023. One thing is for sure, the launch was nothing less than spectacular, and for space enthusiasts, it will be unique to watch this platform evolve.
Yeah, Todd, we could do a whole episode on that topic.
Okay, now, but that write-up
Yeah. Oh, I know.
was 80% ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Okay.
And what did I
Right.
do? How did I get that? I don't want to tell all my secrets yet on how I'm doing this because I'm refining it. Because one thing I'm being very careful here is the source content for this. I need to make sure that I'm not plagiarizing anything that came from the source article.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Writing a
And
summary.
I do think, Todd, I mean, just to kind of give a little context to that, I've been doing a little bit of digging on that topic too. And I've been watching videos on YouTube, and YouTube is a terrific place to go if you want to learn more about
Sure.
the hows of artificial intelligence, right? I think there's been this misperception that just because these platforms have utilized existing data from the internet or from other sources, that somehow it's just regurgitating the same thing.
It's not.
From what I've gathered, and it sounds like you've gathered the same thing, that even in images, right, it's generating unique stuff. It's not necessarily just regurgitating what it's seen outside. It's learned from various elements to combine and create something unique each time.
So here is something I've been thinking about.
Right, which isn't a copyright violation.
Now,
actually.
this summary was written from data that was gleaned from the article I referenced.
Right, and it's okay
Okay.
to do that if the source is owned by the provider, but I'm not sure how ChatGPT knows that what you gave it was written by you.
So what
generated.
What were we taught in college?
Right.
What we were taught in college is make sure that you give
It's an
credit
attribution.
and attribution.
Right.
So I think what we're going to have to do as podcasters is we're going to have to be very, very clear if we're referencing external content and it's rewritten as a summary, as you would do in a college paper. If you're writing a college paper, what are you doing? You're reading an article, right? And you're writing your version of it, and you give an attribution back to that. That's where you formed your ideas. So,
Well, who would you give the attribution to? The AI, or would you give it to some other?
The AI is a
media
service.
source?
You have to give it back to the article. You have to give it back to the source.
Yeah, if you gave it an article to analyze,
Right.
and output something unique
Right.
from it,
That's right.
right? If that's what you're talking about,
That's what I'm
right?
talking about.
So let's say you take an episode of somebody else's podcast,
Yep.
right? And you upload it,
Yep.
the transcript of that. So
Yep.
you upload it to ChatGPT, and then you put a request in there to make derivative content from that.
If
How
their
do you-
license allows that.
Right. So that's the big question: is how do you,
Right.
if people basically capture other people's content and then put it into ChatGPT to generate something new
Right.
that's derivative of that.
Yep.
That's where we get into this gray area.
So my thought process is that I'm going to start adding to my show notes summary derived from link.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. That would make sense.
Because people are already pissed off, Reddit and others, that these systems are, and I'm feeding it the data. There, it's not scraping. I'm feeding it.
Mm-hmm.
So, though that article was written by some human and they paid that human to write that article, and that human or that website wants that traffic because of that. I talked about it during my show. I still link to it in my show notes. I always link to the articles, but have I ever give attribution? I would not give attribution if I written it completely myself. But because I'm worried,
AI needs to know that if you upload a transcript from another content source,
right,
it should be able to analyze that and say, well, that came from here.
Well, I don't think it's the case now, but I think you have to tell it.
Right, but many people aren't going to do that.
No, they're not.
It's going to need to be able to do two things. It's going to need to be able to create derivative content from this, but also recognize it as being from another source. Right.
Because, I think we all value our own work.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I'm editing, and probably 80% of that was written by ChatGPT, and I added this stuff at the end about space enthusiasts, so I added my stuff and then Grammarly did changes, but I get this taste in my mouth that somehow I'm doing something wrong. This is how it kind of like it. I'm not, but it feels that way. It feels
it doesn't feel right.
Feels a little icky.
Yeah, I mean, unless you don't have any kind of morals or values, right?
So
it's like anything goes.
I think there's not written rules on any of this now. Until someone comes in.
It's the same thing with AI in general, right?
Right.
I mean, that's exactly what all those AI scientists were asking for is, let's back off here before we get into territory that things get out of control.
And because I'm trying to figure this out myself,
right?
It's like I'm seeing what I'm doing, and I'm sitting and scratching my head. I'm like, damn, that's pretty good. That's a much, and I could have told it to write 500 characters, but I said, no, give me a short one pair. And it's really probably equivalent to 2 paragraphs. It gives me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gotten me excited about this because I don't think I could have wrote it that good. Maybe I could have, but it would have took me 30 minutes.
And it would have probably had to be looked at by another person in the team.
Well, Grammarly would have done it's for my personal site.
Yeah.
So I don't have a team, and I'm a team of me.
Well, you do have folks that kind of.
Well, I have
company anyway.
Well, right? At Blubrry, we're not putting anything up that's being created by ChatGPT. That's not.
Got it.
Yeah. No. But.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing to run what you write past another set of eyes.
Well, anything that goes out of Blubrry gets 3 sets of eyes. So,
right. Which is important to do.
Right. So, but I think though, these are things that as tools come online, it's things that we're going to have to worry about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Todd, speaking of changing subjects here to some degree, but they're derivative of what we've been talking about here. Stephen Goldstein wrote an article, and that's off of his
is it
amplifymedia.com
Yep.
website. So anyway, the title of the episode is or not episode, but article is, "Oh, you're going to clean up my hot podcast mess." So this is about what's happening around this very same topic that we're talking about. His claim is that it's taking more time to make an episode of a show or traffic an ad with AI. So every day it seems there is another shiny new tool or service for podcasters to utilize.
Right.
In the name of helping podcasters to be better at getting the word out, publishing or editing. But it is getting more complex. Actually, I had lunch with Steve about a month ago, and we had this conversation about this very same topic, is that all these new tools, and I'm sure you're getting outreach from all these tools that are being created all over the globe. I mean, I'm getting outreach from people all over the world, and I'm not even working for a podcast hosting company anymore, but they still are pitching me or wanting to talk to me about what they're doing and how they can optimize what they're doing to better fit with the podcasters right out there. And his contention is that this big kind of shift that we're going through right now, and all the same things that you just talked about, is that there's a lot of experimentation going on. A lot of people are trying new processes, thinking they can improve what they're doing, or they can somehow shorten timeframes to do things. But in the short run, anyway, it's only complicating podcasters' lives right now.
And this is one of the reasons why I'm digging in, because I'm trying. Okay.
You're trying to save some pain for your customers, ultimately.
Ultimately, because I understand what it was to have little kids doing a show. One of the reasons I don't edit is because of that very reason.
Right.
And trying to figure out, the last thing we want is it to take longer. We want to optimize and make it faster. But the question is there a trade-off? Is it going to be better?
Right.
Or is it just a little bit of a fad? I think there are some people, and based upon my years of looking at websites and years of looking at episodes, I'm going to tell you something. People write horrible show notes. Horrible.
Oh, it is a weakness.
Horrible.
But the question gets back to is, are people actually reading show notes? That's the other question.
Okay, hold on, Rob. This is okay. You don't remember my saying. Do you remember my saying?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I'll say it for the 5 bajillionth time.
Please do.
You record your podcast for your audience. You write for Google.
Right. Sure.
You're not writing your show notes for your audience.
So it depends on who the reader target is, right?
It's not
necessarily human.
It's not the human.
Right.
That's
well, that changes what you put in there, right? I mean, if you're writing for humans, that may be different than what you write for Google.
For Google, you're writing for SEO, search result optimization, to try to get people to come to your page when they have searched for that topic, and in turn says, "Oh, here's a podcast. Let me subscribe." But then again,
are we talking about? I mean, Todd, let's be very clear here. There's 2 places that show notes appear in the ecosystem of podcasting. There's one that's on, let's say, a website.
Yeah.
And then there's show notes that appear as part of the episode that gets published into, let's say, Apple Podcasts.
Up to this date, it doesn't matter about the app.
Do they need to be the same?
Don't have to be.
I know.
Even today, they don't have to.
That's my bigger question, is that does it need to be a different show notes for the website for Google?
I can only hope that
Apple doesn't give a hoot about your show notes.
That's right. But
it's not going to help you.
Other apps are. Actually. Other apps are starting to use description search. So maybe. I don't.
Over time,
people don't search for episodes. They don't search for specific content in apps. They search for shows.
Though I would say maybe, I think this is a little bit different in YouTube. So I think people search for specific topics.
Absolutely.
In YouTube. And
maybe.
And it does make me wonder if that's a missed opportunity in the listening apps for podcasting.
Well, I believe it is, but to date, no one has. Well, here's a situation. In order to have good search in apps, guess what you have to have? Back-end infrastructure.
Yeah, and that's expensive.
And most apps don't have that. They have no back-end infrastructure. They're using the Google API.
They usually just search titles, and that's all they search.
That's it. And they have no infrastructure.
Right.
So, because infrastructure is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And indexing and search is expensive. Takes huge databases. You got to see my RDS bill every month. My RDS bill would make you cry.
Yeah, but should AI help with that ultimately? I don't know.
Maybe, but still, even if you do, even you AI in an app, you still have to have reference material for it to go look through, and you have to have but if I would garner, and we'll see if anybody responds to this. If you are an app developer, I would be saving every search query that's being made on your apps. I would be storing that somewhere. And I would analyze that search queries and say, what are people searching for in your podcast app? Are they just searching 90% searching for podcast titles? And if they are, I would never invest a dime in contextual description search in apps. I wouldn't invest a dime.
But Todd, I think you have to back up on that a little bit and say, have we conditioned people to expect sucky results on search? And thus, that's all that they search because they know that's
maybe
all they find.
Yeah, maybe.
Titles.
Maybe.
Right? So
maybe.
So if you can train your listeners to think a little more broadly about what's possible in search.
But that has nothing to do with AI. It's just, this is basic search. You know, you have to build a search algorithm to go into a database and pull that relevant information and provide a speedy response. It's not cheap to do that. And that's why most app developers will never do it. They're being paid $5 for an app one time. They're never going to do it. Unless
somebody's going to do it.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, it's probably going to be the big media platforms that'll probably invest in it first.
We'll see.
Like a Spotify or an Apple, or those kind of folks will probably ultimately at some point run some machine learning against descriptions and podcasts and be able to generate better results at some point. But I know Apple is not a search company, so
that's right.
You know,
and I
who
can
knows
only
if they will have the technology to actually do this.
In the seat I'm sitting in, I only can control what I can control now, and my control is to help content creators have a better publishing experience and help them with show prep and anything I can do to help them in their production. It's, that rest of that will sort itself out. Someone will get innovative, and maybe Marco will go out and do something, or someone will do something and say, hey, by the way, you can search. As a matter of fact, I think there was some announcement, some app having some search in something. There was something announced. I can't remember where I saw it, but someone has done this.
Yeah, so I was going to say, why couldn't a company be formed that does this for all podcasts, and then just creates a query API into these platforms that helps them?
Yeah,
I don't know if that's technically possible.
Rob, we've had
a more efficient way.
We've had a directory API for 10 years.
No, I'm talking about an outside company that actually would do the description indexing.
We've already Blubrry's already done that. I've had an API for years. And no one's
directory search indexing?
Absolutely.
For descriptions?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
so it's, so it's like, okay.
It's an opportunity for these smaller listening apps to tap into better search results in their apps.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't even know that it exists.
And maybe Podcast Index will do some of this. Who knows? By the way, may the 4th be with you. 1,701 sats from Mike Dell. Thank you, Mike, for the May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you.
That's right. Today. May the 4th be with you. So, I don't know. Is anybody else thinking this heavy on this stuff? And again, that's not part of my day job. I'm just thinking about this for my show, and, trying to come up with strategies that will make sense to help. Because the last thing, everyone is, the number one thing I hear besides how do I grow my show is I don't have enough time. I have enough time to do all this stuff. I don't have time to do the social promotion. Matter of fact, we started joking today. I had a call with my support team, and it doesn't seem like anybody's doing their own podcast anymore, because all the support calls we get were people that are supposedly their podcast consultant that don't know, most of them know how to produce, but that's all they know. They don't know anything else. It's shocking how little the plethora of podcast consultants out there actually know about podcasting. They know how to edit audio. That's about it. The majority of them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think that's been a complaint that we've had since, I'm thinking
It's getting
back
worse.
to 2005.
It's went in waves. It's went in waves, but it's gotten
Right.
worse.
Right.
You
I
know.
think- yeah. I mean, if you look at LinkedIn, how many people have
Yeah.
podcasts in their job descriptions or in their job histories?
And I get 25 emails a day from not only people in overseas trying to,
Apple promoters.
but also those that, hey, we'll help you produce your show.
It's always a red flag to me when they're saying, I'm an iTunes podcast promoter.
iTunes. So
Talk about behind the times.
I don't know. I guess we'll see where this is all headed. Again, I'm just experimenting right now and having a little bit fun doing it and see where things will lead. But
Yeah, I just wondered, I mean, these AI technology platforms are running at us at 100 miles an hour. So, this experimentation phase that you're talking about, there's a lot of people in the industry that are thinking on pretty heavy and hard about AI.
well,
And I don't know, who's going to do something or what's going to be around the corner in the next year.
here's what's going to happen. Lots of podcasters are over on ChatGPT playing with this right now by themselves. And they're not stupid. They're going to figure out what is going to help them and what isn't going to help them.
I think there's investors that are fishing around too
Well,
for things
but
they can
there
invest in.
there
in
is a
this side.
time window,
Right. Definitely.
because the consumer is going to figure this out on their own. And they're not going to pay $50, $60, $70, $80, whatever the cost, $49.95 for a service that they can get 90% of the way there by just getting a $20 a month ChatGPT account.
So what do you get, Todd? Are you paying that extra $20 a month?
Absolutely.
So what do you get in addition
Guaranteed access.
to what's offered right now for free?
Nothing's timed out. I get ChatGPT 4. I get basic. I guarantee to log in. I don't think I get much more than that. I get it so I can log in at any time and not have to wait because it's busy.
So you're saying is that the free access is not using ChatGPT 4?
I don't know. I don't use a free one, but I know that when I wasn't on paid, oftentimes it was said, "We're busy. Come back later."
Oh, right. Yeah. I haven't seen that lately. I think I saw that a lot a couple months ago. but
Well, if
I
you don't
haven't
pay
seen
for
that.
ChatGPT, if you can't, just try to pull down the window. If you get 4, I think I get 35 queries every 3 hours with ChatGPT 4 with paid. That's more than I ever use. But
Yeah, I only do maybe one or two a day. max.
so again, a lot of people are thinking about it. A lot of investors are bringing money, but again, there's going to be 100 different services out there. I had a couple of specific use cases that I was looking to. I thought, well, this could do this. And my CTO, she said, why don't you go look at this site? They're doing something like that. And I went over there. I'm like, oh my God, for $57 a month, let me see if this works. And it was what I wanted to do. It was kind of, a little rough yet.
Mhm.
But in the end, there is a distinct advantage to baking this in.
Yeah, I saw, Todd, that you posted the podcast movement session
Yeah.
that we did
Yep, I did.
Right. back in March.
And it might have been a little light on the show notes, but I tried to get it out quickly. And all we have is the audio version. I didn't get the video version.
I think I sent you a link to the video.
You sent me a link to the audio, not to the video, though. Double
I
check.
think it was a separate. I think that was a separate email.
Okay, well, I did not.
I can send it to you again.
Yeah, send me the video again. I'll get the video up.
Okay. And then I did notice in podnews.net, thanks, James, for keeping us up to date on some of the things that are going on in the podcasting space. Apple Podcasts has removed episode numbers from the title of many shows. So people were continuing to add episode numbers to their title in their feeds. And I can see why podcasters are doing that, because not everybody supports what Apple is doing here with episodes. So
this show
it makes sense.
We use
Apple's pulling those out.
We use the Apple way, and they take that as the. I still have the episode
not all
number.
The apps
right
don't want you to use episode numbers, right? So it's, Apple is kind of playing a little bit of a game here, right? They've been doing it for years now.
If they're removing them from how are they determining what is an episode number, though? Are they looking for the number sign how are they programmatically removing that?
I don't know. I guess they look for numerical references, right? That would be the only way I could think of they could do that. I mean, unless a person uses a number in their description or something like that. That could be a conflict here.
Yeah.
But I guess going from 16.3 to 16.4, episode numbers for any show marked as episodic by default. I guess Apple has removed those numbers.
If you use the Apple episode number, they remove that? If you use their spec?
No, if you don't use your spec, if you put the episode number in just your regular title.
Right.
That goes beyond their numbering system that they have.
I still do it, but I use the Apple system.
But as well, probably you do both.
Both, yeah.
Right. So that was an interesting kind of move by Apple. And in some ways that makes sense. And it could be a benefit for people, because a lot of people want to continue using episode numbers in their titles or other listening platforms. So that makes sense. So, and then anything else going on? I did notice that U.S. podcasters Will Sasso and Chad Coldwater have been threatened with legal action for posting an AI-generated video of former NFL player Tom Brady telling jokes.
If they say it's parody and are full disclosed that it's a fake, I don't.
Well, it is a fake if it's generated. If it's AI-generated
then
video.
If they fully disclose that, then I don't. That can be considered art. I think I would. If you have the money,
is that kind of misrepresentation of him?
Not if you're saying it's parody.
I don't know that they
or
did.
comedy. I guess it depends on how you frame the content. If you frame it as factual, then maybe you're going to be in some issue there.
Okay, I'm seeing what was posted, and it obviously looks like an AI generated version of Tom Brady. It's almost like a Max Headroom kind of a look.
So maybe there's a likeness thing. Who knows? I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know.
It says apparently Tom Brady didn't think that AI generated comedy special about him was funny at all, is what the article says. So, this is getting into that gray area of AI, right? It's capable of creating likeness generated versions representing real people saying things that they never said. But this obviously is an animated character that was generated. So
I saw that I had and maybe I just should have done a Google search, but I saw that there's a Pod Save the UK.
Yeah, I saw
and
that too.
Is this being hosted by people that live in the UK? So
I'm assuming that
Nish
would be
Kumar is
the
an
case.
English stand-up comedian. Okay, so it does appear that
Yeah,
the
'cause Pod
hosts
Save
are from
America is the same group that
right,
is
right, right.
behind it.
Yeah. So it appears that the at least the hosts are English.
And if you look at their names, they certainly don't look like, I don't know. I probably
well,
shouldn't
come
say
on,
this. Yeah, right.
we're pretty diverse here, Rob. It's every name in the book.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That's true.
Let's see here, Coco
But-
Han. She's with the Guardian. So yeah, it looks like they're both English. So
So it says it's one of the biggest UK podcasts to launch.
So I did not get to see the share of ear study. I have not looked at it yet. Is this a preliminary or is this a
Yeah, I saw it.
9% of all Americans spend time with audio? And again, the share of ear, it's the audio. It's it's actually,
Yeah, I think
it's
that
a
there was
quarterly share.
three-
Quarterly podcasts are actually 9%. Wow.
Yeah, I think that there was like 3 audio survey results that came out this week from a variety of sources. One came from the Cumulus Media folks,
Mhm.
also talking about podcast audience.
Said-
Is it the Cumulus Media 2023 Audioscape? 7 new findings about podcast audience.
31% daily time spent listening
Mhm.
is podcast. We are 9% of all audio. And what else? Is that it? Is that the 2 major takeaways?
Yeah, this is the Edison research.
Yeah, this is the Edison one. Yeah.
Is what you're showing here. Is there any? Do you notice any key important takeaways on that?
Just the 9% number. So I don't know if that has
That's it.
grown. Yeah, has grown to a record 9%. I don't know what it was a year ago. Oh, well, they go all the way back to 2014. Through the scope, share of ear, this curve is an all-time high of 31% of all spoken word audio listening going to podcasting increased reported for 4% 2014. So that's a share of ear for daily time spent. Let me look and see if I can actually, doesn't show the old number. We'll have to go look it up if we want to get that data.
The share of ear. Q1. Oh, okay. This is
This is
it's
all
kind of
audio.
old. It's all some of this I'm seeing is kind of old research.
Well, it's it's current. This is the quarterly data, but it's again audio as a whole, not just podcasting.
Yeah, but the dates that I see on this Westwood 1 is comparing what looks like the data was originally released back in 2022. So it's not current. It's not current data. So at least that's what it says on the lower part of the screen. But it still shows strong growth in 35 to 64 listening. It appears that demo is growing the fastest with podcasts and around talk personality, and the 18 plus is growing the second fastest.
I did have to giggle though. Nick Quaw's back in the news.
Yeah, he couldn't stay away from podcasting too long, could he?
No, he says he reports that the Writers Guild of America strike means it appears independent fiction it impacts independent fiction podcasts the most. What is the total number of shows that have Writers Guild writers writing for it? 100 maybe?
Yeah.
It can't be that
Yeah.
many.
Well, it's probably some derivative of kind of larger media content.
But still, there's not that many.
Has the budget to afford.
Yeah, who
paid writers, right? Right.
When you say, "Oh, I got paid writers for my show," I'm like, "Wow,"
Yeah, and I think that
Toddy
there's some
ta.
folks in the industry that have a disproportionate perspective on it, of how important the Writers Guild of America is for podcasting. I think that they think that it's bigger influence.
I'm sure it's a big impact for those that are,
involved in it.
Yeah, but the rest of us were like, okay, whatever.
I think it's probably less than 1% of the podcasting market has any kind of impact.
1/10 of 1%,
right,
maybe.
Right. So, and I think it was like 15 years ago that was the last writer strike. It's mainly going to impact really any kind of screenwriter, any kind of copywriter type of folks that mainly work with larger media companies is who it really impacts the most. But there's a lot of independent writers that are writing for projects out there too that could be impacted by it as well.
If you want to roll your own, roll your own podcast host.
Okay.
There's someone out there that's open source Castapod, and they're basically saying, hey, you can roll your own, you can pay us, and then we will roll your own servers. I'm going to caution anyone that is trying to roll their own on basically a 10-pound, $9.96. I don't know if that's euros a month a plan. You're going to put a bunch of podcasts on there, roll your own. Yeah. Caution, Will Rogers.
So you're talking about getting like just a server and trying to host your own stuff.
Well, it's basically you become your own podcast host for your network.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You run everything.
Self-hosting.
Yeah. Well, you do Blubrry's job.
Like
you have a CDN and everything.
What I used to do when I started. Getting into this. Right.
So if
it's fraught with problems.
If you're a nerd, there's gonna be some out there.
I mean, I know.
Yeah.
We worked together back in 2005, and I had like 4 co-located servers that I was hosting other people's shows back then.
It's all fun and games until it goes down in the middle of the night.
The hour gets hacked,
or worse.
That's the other thing that
right
can happen. You can't have enough security layers on that stuff.
So I wrote 2 posts, and I put them on my personal website. And I keep getting asked by podcasters and listeners this thing called value for value. What is this value?
Oh, I saw that. Thing? Right. Yeah, I saw that you posted on that.
So I wrote one that's specifically for podcasters called the Value for Value Revolution in Podcasting. And it kind of lays out the 6 or 7 steps of value for value. And then I wrote a second one for listeners called Boost Your Listening Experience, the value for value model for podcast support. And I put those both up and kind of laid out the details. I'm hoping someone comes up with a great video at some point. We can, something short, 2-3 minutes. It'll spell all this out. But
I think that there does need to be a strong educational campaign.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah,
I think there's still a lot of mystery around it.
But the value for value model, just so we're square, does not have to involve crypto. You can have a PayPal link on your website, or get a physical check, and you can implement the value for value model.
Right.
If you want to do the extra stuff, then you can do the podcasting 2.0 value for value model using Satoshis. But the basis of value for value does not have to be a non-fiat fund. It can be, just like I've done for years, have a PayPal link on my website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably the easier way of doing it.
Well, it's definitely the most people have a PayPal account, so you just go on and create a donation widget in PayPal and slap it on your website, and you're good. It's literally a 5-minute thing to implement, maybe 10, because you got to find the menu in PayPal, which will take you 5 minutes. Now they kind of hide it now. The crypto stuff doesn't take long to set up either, but it's just it's then you have to start this heavy education process of using the podcast apps over at podcastapps.com, which, is a big part of it. And then you get to hear sounds like this. Well, so there we
Silence?
go. You get to hear that kind of a sound.
I didn't hear anything.
It didn't come feedback to you. I think the audience could hear it, but You couldn't.
Yeah.
So
All right.
it's just it's an interesting time. I had a very good conversation with a organization this afternoon. I guess I'll leave it at that. And there is
That's not saying much.
well, I'll go a little further.
You
There
will?
is
Okay.
there is big interest by prominent web groups on what's happening in podcasting 2.0.
When you say web groups, what is a web group?
I can't go any deeper than that, or you'll figure out who I'm talking about. It's
So
just
is it an online community? Is that what it is?
an entity.
Or is it an organization?
An entity. I'll leave it at that. There's huge interest in what's going on, and at a much, much higher level than just podcasting too. So
Why do you think that they're interested in it?
because podcasting has been stagnant in feature, in its ability to have features. As I was like the other day, I was explaining to my team,
Mhm.
as more specifically the social media group that is doing the social for us. I'm like, the value as an example, in this show's RSS feed, we have a link to you and I as hosts. Both go to our LinkedIn profiles.
Right.
And on certain apps, we show up as icons on those apps, you and I as the host. And when there's a guest, we can add a guest.
Mm-hmm.
It adds to the CV. It adds to the value of the show over time as people start picking that up and looking at that feature and being able to say, okay, who's Todd, who's Rob, who's the guest, and be able to click on that and go and look at the bio or LinkedIn profile of a guest. It's just adds a feature that over time will become more valuable. Currently, the only place you can get a host and co-host and guest is if you're one of the very, very small percentage of shows that have been lucky enough to be invited by Apple to have been able to designate host and guest and those types of things. And I don't even know if they're really pushing it anymore. So it's just one small thing, one small feature that over time is going to continue to build value and audience engagement on the content that they see in their app. If you think about the site that the IMDb for podcasting, what are their names? They got money. They were bought. They had everyone's profiles on there, and they had Podchaser. So Podchaser takes this data and uses that in
it's
there.
It's now owned by Acast.
Right. So it's these types of things over time as these functions are picked up by different apps. So right now, as an example, the thing I'm saying here is I'm the chicken. I've made the feature available. The podcaster's the egg because they're the ones that's going to put the data in these meta fields. And then the fried egg, when it's cooked, is going to come from the apps. And they're going to take the egg and they're going to put these features into functions, but we have to build enough momentum for an app to say, okay, now there is enough participants that we're going to add that as a feature to the app so it doesn't screw up my all UI for everyone that doesn't have it. So I think we still have a couple of years here to really get this rolled up. But what the simple thing is for the first time in really since 2005, we're advancing a space. And we are moving forward. We're not stuck on just RSS 2.0 and the functionality in there. And over time, again, it's a run to get more adoption. I think this is exciting to folks that are interested in the open, aka open ecosphere of the web and podcasting, and these types of we're not talking about Web 2 or Web 3 or whatever the hell they call it. We're talking
Web
about
3, right.
we're talking about the the ability for the internet as it was designed to be open
Yeah. I don't,
instead
I
of
don't know
going
how
into
long
the.
that's going to last.
Well, I think it's going to last a long time because there's a lot of people that are starting to realize that walled gardens, look at the debacle. Some people hate Twitter now. They hate Twitter. And where have they moved? They moved to Mastodon. And they're starting to realize, people are starting to make a little bit of a realization, even though I think Twitter's still viable and I'm having great discussions over there. People are starting to realize maybe it's time that we start putting stuff back in our own stack, stuff that we can control. Where if you don't like a certain individual and what he's done with a company, you don't care because you still own your vertical. And we control the features and we control where the space goes.
Well, Todd, I would counter that and say that I think what's coming with AI is going to kill the World Wide Web.
I don't think so.
Ultimately,
I don't think so.
It could undermine its relevancy.
It's going to change Google search. It's not going to change the creative path of creators putting out creative content. Not going to. It's still going to take Robs and Todds to create shows like this that are going to compel people to do things and have a deep thought discussion.
Yeah. Well, I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm talking about what we see on the World Wide Web, which tends to be written content that tends to get out of date very quickly.
Oh, that could change quickly.
Right. So think about how AI technology is going to change that.
But we have to be careful. And I talked about something about going back to old content and updating it. Do we want to overwrite history too? We have to be careful not to overwrite history.
That's like what you mentioned earlier, right? Is the ability to go in and update descriptions and titles based on interest, right?
Right.
And that could be done by AI technology, right? That could be done based on AI monitoring
if the biases are not there, I think there's still going to be a need for the origin content and not allow that. This is where the danger lies in having history rewritten, and people are already, they ask. I heard something, and I don't watch Bill Maher. But, Elon Musk was on there and there was an interesting interview that they had. And, when you have students that don't understand, even though George Washington, the founder of the United States, first president of the United States, was a slave owner, at that time, the whole doggone world was embraced in that insanity. Right. But they don't know, people don't know the rest of the history of George Washington.
Well, they are applying current thought to historical thought.
Right. And what happens?
It's not the same.
And what happens when the historical references of what was accomplished is
get lost
and overwritten.
Based on this negative perception of something.
This is the caution
that applies to current thinking.
Yeah.
Right?
This is, and again, this is a bigger topic, but it could go where someone that's 50 years from now, all of a sudden you're like, there's no what I don't think it's going to completely.
It's been happening in our culture. We are overwriting history, right? We're taking what we believe now and saying history needs to be rewritten,
right?
Even though that's not necessarily, maybe it's accurate reflection of what history was, but it's not how history has been shared up to this point.
But I think we learn a lot from history. We learn what to change. That's right. The good and the bad and the mistakes and the behavior that people were able to get away with when I was a teenager.
But if we wipe out our perspective on history, then there is no context to the present.
Right. That's true. So again, I don't know if it fully relates to AI or not, but I think it will over time because AI is going to translate the world in real time. Right.
And it's going to make what we see, and there may be bias in AI too. There may be bias to not reflect on the past and
It-
not have any input on the past.
If in another statement that was made by Elon in that interview that I found to be pretty fascinating is that what you hold in the palm of your hand, you have more information available to you as Joe Q world citizen than the president of the United States had in his knowledge base in 1980.
Probably even shorter time frame than that.
Probably true.
Right.
So I'm not going to get too stuck on AI. I think we're just going to continue to watch it. But, what I've been telling my tech audience is you better be the person in your company that understands this.
Yeah, I think you could run into problems if you ignore it.
Right.
I think over time, I think a lot of things are going to change because of it. And, I wanted to mention one other thing here, Todd, too, change the subject a little
Sure.
bit, but I did notice in the newsletter, the Pod News newsletter was the research that was listed from the 3 companies that James listed as putting out research, right? Odyssey, Cumulus, and iHeartRadio, and I think there was another company too. And all those companies are radio companies.
That's right.
Right. Are we starting to see, with the down economy and maybe fewer independent creators creating content, we're seeing this as an opportunity for these big media companies to come in and kind of influence this podcasting medium on an kind of overly influence it towards radio methodologies. And I was
hope
a little
not.
bit concerned about that from the standpoint of some of the dialogue that I hear in the industry right now that seems to be leaning increasingly towards thinking that radio and podcasting are the same thing.
Well, guess what? They are making a fundamental, universal mistake and are bound for failure if they think this is the same type of medium.
Yeah, but I think that there's an interest on the part of those radio companies as they see their radio audience dwindle away over time of shifting over to podcasting, that they start to view podcasting as just another resurgence of radio.
Well, good for them. Let them do that.
Yeah. And that could just, it could just be as simple as the influence in the medium is increasingly growing around these big radio companies.
But they're, let's be honest, the backbone of the podcasting space is still 99% independent indie creators.
Yeah, but there's a lot of perception out there, Todd, that these radio companies and these big media companies are what podcasting is all about now.
Well,
so
guess what? It's our job to dispel that stupidity.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because unfortunately, there's a perception that the independent producers don't get the mind share as much as they used to. Right. So anyway, I agree with you, Todd. It's keeping that dialogue open and making sure that people in the industry know that the vast majority of content creators in this industry are independent creators. They're not part of these big radio companies.
Part of the stuff that we're doing at Blubrry we're now taking a different approach to our podcast. And I think if they subscribe to that, if podcasters subscribe to it, we are reaffirming and getting into fundamentals again that are basically re-emphasizing that what this space is about, what's successful, why there's no rules, all these things that independent content creators need to kind of realize that they need to think a little bit beyond, like you said, what they're being told, and the stupidity that happens on Facebook groups and people trying to make a name for themselves and being shills and selling people a bag of goods that is essentially worthless. And then, you go looking people up that are making these comments and you've never heard of them before, and they're coming across as an authority in podcasting. I think this is where content creators need to be very careful and select and get a wide variety of news. If you're a content creator, get a wide variety of opinions, not just this show, get others too. because we're not completely right. We're very opinionated, but
Right. Yeah, I did notice that there was an article that was posted by Pocket Casts
Yep.
about improving podcast search in their app.
that's right. That's where I was thinking about that.
Yeah. This article came out. It was written by Philip Simpson from Pocket Casts on May 2nd. It says, at Pocket Casts, we keep track of all of the feature requests. And at the top of the list has been improving our search functionality. And we've been hard at work on this, and we're excited to update you on our progress. So they have earlier this year, we unveiled an upgraded version of podcast search functionality, which migrated from MySQL database to it's basically Elasticsearch. This transition has unlocked the full potential of our search response times have been improved. So it looks like it's really just been response times. And it says we expanded the range of searchable fields, which means more podcasts are being found with every search. So they're not being very specific on what fields that they're referring to here that they've expanded to, but at least it's good to see
I have
a listening app.
I have high
thinking
hope.
about this.
I have high hopes for Podcast Addict. Of course, they're owned by Automatic, and they open source part of it in the Automatic. Because WordPress is open, Automatic's open. Not open, but Podcast Addict's been opened up to an extent. So I have high hopes that Podcast Addict is going to rapidly be increasing market share. They're smart over there. So
well, and it looks like Pocket Cast is trying to make some improvements too. So they're going to continue.
I'm sorry, Pocket Cast.
Yeah, they're going to continue to advance their search functionality.
Yeah, I meant to say
they're not being
Cast,
very.
Sorry.
Yeah, but they're not being very specific on what they're actually looking at right now. But
well, if you're getting ready to enhance your app, would you be really fully, transparent if you're trying to gain market share?
Well, I think it would be helpful for the industry to know what fields.
Well, when they do, I'm sure they will. That's what your job is, Rob.
All they've said is they've expanded the range of searchable fields.
Well, then a Daniel J. Lewis or you need to dig in there and figure out which fields they've expanded. That's an easy process.
Well, I guess there's probably only so many fields that they can expand into.
Actually. Right. It's true. There's not. We pretty much know what the sources are.
Right. There's tags in there, and there's categories, and there's show notes.
Yeah.
So, right.
So if you are a podcaster and you want to see what we've been talking about and keep driving you guys crazy on podcastapps.com, go over there and grab yourself a new podcast app. And the two I like a lot, just from a personal standpoint, is Podverse to consume content live, and Fountain. Of course, there's Cast-O-Matic and Curiocaster and a few others that are adding features. So, but go over there to podcastapps.com, participate here and play along with us in this. And if you don't want to, we'll leave the lights on for you. And we're just going to keep on rocking and rolling. Rob, we are here at the end.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I'm Todd at Geek News. geeknews@gmail.com is the place you can send comments to.
Yeah, and I'm on Twitter at Rob Greenlee, and you can certainly send me an email, rob.greenlee@gmail.com. Happy to hear from you, and we'd love to hear from you. And if send us an email, we can talk about it on the show. So I would love to hear from you and get your thoughts on topics maybe we should talk about, or guests that we could have on. I've talked to quite a few folks that are interested in coming on the show. I just have been more focused on just Todd and I talking lately. So I don't know if you're open to having more guests on, Todd, over the next few weeks. But okay, so our new recording system, we can bring on a third person, and it won't be a problem.
Yep,
okay.
No issue. Yep, no problem.
Okay.
And what we'll do here is, those of you that watch live on Thursday, thanks for tuning in. And we had quite a few of you. And Bill, I saw you made some comments. Don't know what to say about the site that you recommended. I don't endorse anything until I've run it through the ringer, especially when it's got the words AI attached to it. But we'll be back here on a normal time next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, if you want to tune in live, or you can always catch us on the download or on the follow and subscribe at newmediashow.com.
Sounds terrific, Todd. Actually, the week after, on the 17th, I'm going to be traveling to
You're
Los
out.
Angeles.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
going to be speaking at the Outlier Podcast Conference in
Aha.
LA.
Well, have fun. I hope you found a venue that has air conditioning. The
Yeah.
last one in LA, we sweat to the bone. I lost 5 pounds.
We did. Yeah, I think it does. And it's actually not that hot in LA, so
Well,
quite yet.
It feels like it's still winter and it's May. What's going on here?
Right.
So hoping
Right.
for better weather this weekend. All right, Aaron,
Yeah.
we're out of here. Thanks so much. And let me get the right screen up before we. Of course, I don't have it ready. There it is. All right, we'll get out of here. Everybody, thanks. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.